Thor's amazing character transformation, both emotionally and physically, you can't help but wonder what's next for Thor and the Guardians. Well, we think that this next film is going to be integral in bringing about not only the next universe-ending villain, but also everyone's favorite anti-spider, Venom. That's right, not only do we believe the symbiotes are going to be making a big impact on the MCU, we believe that the Knull, the literal god of the symbiotes, will be the next big bad in the MCU. Move over, Purple Chin, we got 50 Shades of Black over here. My name is Callum, and I am joined by my wonderful buddy Zach. How you doing, big boy? You ready to crack out some of these marvelous theories?
Zach is no more.
Oh my God.
He's gone, Callum.
Oh no!
We are one.
Ah!
We are Venom. Sorry.
Are you hungry, buddy?
Sorry, I had a bit of a there was something stuck in my throat.
Yeah.
Marvel-ish. I see what you did there. Very funny man. Yes, I'm ready to talk all about some gooey black goo and how it's gonna touch every single hero we know and love.
All right, well, let's jump right in. First, let's establish what Knull and the symbiotes are. Zach, kick us off. Who are these guys?
Okay, get your pens and papers, kiddies, because we've got some info to dump on you. So Knull is a primordial god of the void that existed before the universe. That's right, he was here before the universe was cool. The ultimate hipster. He's literally the god of darkness, and when the Celestials came about and spoiled his domain and kicked him to the curb and said, you can't keep living here rent-free anymore, bucko, he created the symbiotes to wage war against all of existence, as one typically does. So you thought Thanos was bad with his purple chin and his dishwashing gloves that take out all of existence? This guy is the hemorrhoids of gods, and the problem is there's no cream for this one. Okay? The symbiotes are what people would most be familiar with, the creature that Venom is, Spider-Man's arch nemesis, or one of. He changes every week. The guy has major commitment issues. The thing is, though, not all symbiotes are web-slinger ripoffs. There's at least a few. I don't know, read Venom Lethal Protector. That's a good starter comic to get you right into the fact that there are other symbiotes. Some are orange and scream very loud.
Oh boy.
To break it down, it's a separate creature that needs to attach itself to a host and bond over some romantic movies. All the symbiotes are connected. It's like a big Discord server, and there's a really fat moderator right at the top, and his name is Knull. He's really cool. We'll get to him in a second. So how is it that we get from this army of darkness all the way to Venom and Carnage? Well, guess what? It's all connected by the one and only Thor, Odin's son. That's Odin's son. Probably didn't catch it. It's very confusing, clearly.
Well, like all the way back when Knull was trying to destroy the universe, typical supervillain stuff, 2 of Knull's symbiote dragons, right, arrived in Scandinavia on Earth. Of course, Thor couldn't have that, so he gave him a little taste of the divine lightning. He introduced them to the wonders of electricity. This apparently sent shockwaves throughout the whole hive mind of symbiotes, which caused many of them to shock out of their hive mind states. And then they were like, what's the meaning of life, bro? So they started seeking out hosts that would give their existence meaning beyond mindless destruction. This led to some of them attaching to pretty good people, and then it led to these good symbiotes forming a group who call themselves the Clintar, and they rebel against Knull and eventually imprison him. And this is the really interesting thing, right? The symbiotes essentially split into evil cult hive minds to continue Knull's goal of destruction, and then there's the good hive mind who rebelled against Knull, and they created the agents of the cosmos, right? They become this superhero team. They're the Power Rangers of space, basically, right? But they're weird and gooey, and you probably wouldn't want them in your apartment. They leave goo everywhere. They wouldn't
very messy boys.
Very messy boys. You don't want to be sharing a towel with these guys. The good ones invented a new culture, right? Around their beings being naturally benevolent. They were born to help bring peace to the universe. Now this didn't always work because if the host wasn't a perfect match for these morals and beliefs, if their Google search history wasn't the most PC. This would corrupt both the symbiote and the hosts, and the agents would basically wipe them off too. It's like having a family portrait, except you're ripping off the son that goes off and does some weird furry stuff, you know what I mean? You're blanking him out with Tipex. That's what happened to Venom. For some reason, he got ostracized from the rest of these symbiote hive minds and somehow ended up on Spider-Man. Like, I mean, you remember how Venom got attached to Spider-Man, right, Zach?
Yeah, it was on a real funky spaceship on a planet called Battle World. It's the most creative name I've ever heard. Spider-Man just thought it was, he's looking at it as like, oh boy, this goop sure is sticky. Oh boy, this goop sure is stretchy. Oh boy, this goop sure is enveloping. What is happening here? And then boom, he had a brand new costume. He didn't have to go to like the Gap. He's looking at this costume. He's like, "Oh, this thing's stretchy. What is that? Is that Old Navy? Is that Old Navy brand? Is that Supreme?"
And that's it, right? Venom attaches himself to Spider-Man on Battle World. Then Spider-Man hikes it back to Earth, and then Spider-Man's like, I don't like being goth no more. I'm gonna go back to being red and blue. And then after that, Venom attaches himself to Eddie Brock, and then that leads to a whole mess of problems.
Yeah, so after, a series of the worst Tinder dates you could possibly have, it's obviously a bit of a far stretch from what we know the symbiotes to be. But you've got to remember there are more than just the agents of the cosmos, right? Venom and Carnage. The thing is that you could slap a symbiote onto anything and it could become good or evil, regardless. It's usually badass and weird looking. For some reason, one of the main defaults that you can't really alter is the longest tongue in the world. Basically, as soon as you get a symbiote, your girlfriend immediately becomes 10 times happier with you. As soon as you get a symbiote, you become the world's greatest ice cream licking champion. It's kind of incredible. You can destroy a popsicle in a matter of seconds. A lot of the time, though, it's usually a descendant of Venom or Carnage because the symbiotes like to keep very inbred. They have a very inbred little bloodline there. Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's this one very specific one who's one of my favorites. His name is Toxin, and that is the spawn of Venom and Carnage, I guess. It comes from both of them, sort of. So it's basically just like Venom spawns Carnage, and then Carnage is like, hey there, Daddy, you're looking real nice today. And then Toxin is born, and he's just so confused about what he is. He's like, am I good? Am I bad? Am I gross? All of the above. It doesn't exactly happen like that. We're exaggerating on this show. Because the symbiotes, they reproduce asexually, aka boring.
Well, that's the thing, right? Is Venom and then Carnage, they end up producing all these different types of symbiotes, and that's not even connected to all the ones that are part of the Agents of the Cosmos. You got Anti-Venom,
Dark Carnage. That one's my favorite. I like Raze. He's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's Toxin you mentioned.
Mania.
Riot. That's even whenever you're not counting the different characteristics the originals take on whenever they're fusing with different characters. Venom ends up pretty different depending if he's attached to Miles Morales, Deadpool, Human Torch. Those Venomized pop figures are out there for a reason, guys. It ain't just because Disney loves merchandising.
Yeah, I mean, they love that, okay, because they love all that sweet Shkreli. You gotta remember, the people just love the symbiotes. The current Spider-Man show on Disney XD, the one that people don't like, it had a full arc called Maximum Venom, which I'm fairly certain is just a play on the name Maximum Carnage, which is a comic from the 90s, and then it had a Super Nintendo game also. Very specific to just give one comic story, a Super Nintendo game, but it's cool. But it's called Maximum Venom, and every character and their mom gets a symbiote. You look at the promo art, and it's got Captain Marvel with a symbiote, Miles with a symbiote, Iron Man with a symbiote, Captain America with a symbiote, Venom is there. Spider-Man's just stuck in the middle of this weird symbiote lovemaking party, and he's just kind of held up in the corner oh man, I'm a young boy, and all these guys are getting weird around me.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Venom can attach to absolutely anybody. It's like anybody getting hooked up in an Iron Man suit. And that means, right, with all this stuff going on, it means that either there's potentially an evil dark army out there in the MCU of the symbiotes, or there's a benevolent super soldier making peacekeeping society that we're yet to encounter. But right now, if it's in space, the Guardians of the Galaxy could easily come across them. And I think that either of them's pretty cool. But how do we know symbiotes are gonna be a thing in Thor Love and Thunder? First off, we gotta make a connection that's already there in the MCU. A symbiote weapon, the Necrosword, or called the All Black, has already been teased to be used by Hela in Thor Ragnarok, proving there is an existing connection. Some people may dismiss this, right, as just like the Necrosword, the swords that Hela was producing, the weapons she was using, was just part of her powers, because really her powers just seem to be, I'm gonna create loads of spiky stuff and stab loads of people.
It's a good motivation.
It is a good motivation. It's a good reason to be able to create pointy swords. But the design of the swords that she uses looks so much like the Necro swords or the All Black, right?
I'm pretty sure they look exactly identical. I'm not 100% sure. There might be like one or two differences that I'm not noticing, but that looks like the All Black sword to me.
My Marvel senses are tingling right now. I think that Hela got her hands on a symbiote blade, the Necrosword. I'm betting on it. And given the fact that Hela and Odin were going around smiting and conquering the 9 realms, I don't think it's a big stretch to think that they came across Knull, or the symbiotes for that matter, and the All Black could have fused with Hela to make her as powerful as she was. Like, Odin was afraid that she got too powerful, and that's why she was locked away. So what if she became too powerful because she was fused with the Necrosword? That would be so cool.
Indeed. Pretty radical. Even if Hela wasn't using the Necrosword, we've already seen hints of Knull throughout the MCU. For example, the dead celestial head that became nowhere in Guardians of the Galaxy. It was confirmed that this celestial was killed by Knull. So Knull has already been teased in the MCU. And the thing is, the MCU is going to need another huge baddie to build up over the course of the next phase. I don't think it's going to be like, what is it going to be, like Blob? Is it going to be Blob? I don't think it's going to be Blob. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be MODOK. Galactus would be cool, but that's way too soon.
Yeah, way too soon.
And with the Fantastic Four movie that was just announced for the MCU, I'm pretty sure it's not going to be Doctor Doom.
No.
You know, Knull or some other loser. Destroying the whole universe is a step up from killing half the universe, so this seems like our guy.
And even if they didn't want to introduce Knull just yet, they could introduce someone connected to the symbiotes, and someone maybe who's just been cast as Gorr the God Butcher. Zach, when you hear the Disney Investor Summit, does that sound like something you'd be buying tickets to see?
Disney Summit of the Nerds.
Yeah, the investors thing.
Not only does it not sound like that at all, and it sounds super boring, but I want you to know, Disney, I'm talking directly to you, that when you name something that, it just sounds like you're talking about a mountain that just has a bunch of white dudes standing at the top of it in suits. Really big, pearly white smiles, waving their hand like, hello.
Well, something I was keeping an eye on, right, because Kevin Feige announced it during that summit, was that Christian Bale, yep, old Christopher Nolan's Batman, will be playing Gorr the God Butcher.
The American Psycho himself?
The American Psycho himself is going to be playing this guy. But for those who don't know, Zach, catch us up on who Gorr is.
All right, for those who don't know, Gorr is a vengeful piece of work, and he looks kind of like a thumb. Who is Gorr, you may ask? What are Gorr's interests? Does Gorr like holding hands and going for walks on the beach? What's Gorr's favorite band? Well, Gorr is a man of faith, so he's on Christian Mingle. He loves spending time with his wife, kids, the Lord, having his parents die at an early age, and then the rest of his loved ones dying of all sorts of natural disasters. His life sucks, and God's not real.
Yeah, by the end of that, he was like, you know what? God doesn't exist. After his son died, he was like, have I been texting the wrong number or something? Have I been praying in the wrong direction?
Have I been holding my hands in the weird way? Am I supposed to do like gang signs or like a Naruto jutsu? What am I missing here?
Yeah, like he renounced his faith, and that meant that the rest of his people exiled him, and he basically wanders the desert aimlessly.
Eventually, though, he comes across Knull, our old god of darkness, fighting an unknown god in golden armor after crash landing on his planet.
Yeah, Knull was knocked out, right? And this golden god was begging for Gorr's help. And Gorr was like, I wrote you when you still weren't calling. I left my cell pager, my home phone at the bottom. Hell, bro, I would have taken a smoke signal, my guy.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Did you write? Is that a Stan reference?
Yes, it is.
Is that an Eminem reference?
Yes, it's an Eminem reference.
You are disgusting. You are disgusting, and I hate you. Anyways, Knull's symbiote weapon, the All Black or Necro Sword, or big stabby stab, then bonded with Gorr, who promptly curb stomped the god into the ground. This led Gorr to basically Kratos it up, okay? He was like, Ares! And then Ares didn't answer, so he had to go find someone else. He went God of War, started killing every single god he could get his hands on, eventually coming across Thor. Here's the thing. All of Gorr's powers, his ability to take on these gods, was all because of the All Black, the weapon that he got from Knull. So, he paid to win with DLC. This means that if Christian Bale is going to be playing him in the next Thor movie, then he will definitely have a connection to the symbiotes. And I say definitely because if I'm wrong, I will eat my own socks.
I will pay to see that. Now, of course, all this is only speculation, and I know people in the comments might go on to say the MCU won't tackle such like a universe-ending threat like Knull when there's still so many villains they could build up to Knull with. But here's the kicker, right? And the reason why I think the symbiotes need to be introduced into the MCU soon. It's because of Venom.
Yeah, Venom, aside from puberty, is arguably the biggest villain Spider-Man has ever had to face. Everyone knows about it. We've got the connections being made, so Marvel's gonna use him. Spider-Man arguably has the most momentum out of all the heroes on the roster at the moment, so they'll want to capitalize on that ASAP. Spider-Man, before the MCU came around, Spider-Man was the Marvel superhero. You ask anybody about a Marvel superhero, and they will tell you that they love Spider-Man. They're gonna want to capitalize on that ASAP, right? Now, they could just shove him into the MCU, fight with Spider-Man, blah, 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 kick it, go home. They could have done that if it wasn't for Thor. So here's the thing. Thor is the reason characters like Venom, Carnage, Riot, any of those guys even exist. And it's because Thor disconnected their hive mind from Knull's control. He unplugged the Player 3 controller.
It hasn't been mentioned that they've fought any kind of like Lords of Darkness beyond like the Dark Elves from Thor Dark World, which to be honest was a whole other different thing.
Yeah, and also a bad movie. Go on.
So in order for Venom to be a thing in the Marvel continuity, someone needs to have severed the symbiote connection to Knull. So either Thor or someone, maybe Odin or Hela, needs to have sent that shockwave through the symbiote hive mind. So here's how I think it would play out, and I think this would tie in really nicely with the end of Thor Ragnarok, and if Hela had the Necrosword, right? At the end of Thor Ragnarok, you have Asgard being destroyed, and when you look at the Nine Realms, especially around the end of Odin's rule, they're mostly just being ignored, because Loki's taken over. What if, while destruction is spreading through the Nine Realms, Gorr is someone from one of the planets supposedly under the protection of the Asgardians? Because in the source material, Gorr's planet is never identified, right? But if the MCU gave him an attachment to the Asgardians, it would make his relationship with gods that much more personal from what we know. Gorr's family's suffering, right? He still believes the gods will save him. So imagine this. He goes to Asgard to find help, but when he gets there, the world's destroyed when Hela is fighting Surtur. Hela loses the Necrosword in the battle. Gorr is on the brink of death in space, and the All Black then fuses to him, and that saves his life. He sees Asgard has fallen, his faith is shaken, and it's not until the All Black helps him get home that he sees he wasn't there for his family. He could have protected them, but he wasn't able to because of the Asgardian gods. They're the reason everything went wrong, and that's the reason he's got to hit out for Thor and any other god he comes across, becoming Gorr the God Butcher. This gives Thor a reason to look back and doubt his family history, and see that Knull is an even bigger threat that exists in the MCU because of his symbiote connection.
Yeah, and that could link into Natalie Portman's announcement that she'll become Jane Foster Thor in the upcoming Thor movie. Gorr could kill Thor, nice rhymes, giving Gorr the God Butcher, like, name, so he would officially become Gorr the God Butcher, giving Chris Hemsworth a reason to dip, meaning Jane Foster would take up the role as Thor from now on, and Chris Hemsworth can go back to eating like a human.
It would give Thor a reason to dip out, but not just that, it would give a connection to Hela being the conqueror of worlds for Odin, and regardless of any of this, Gorr having a symbiote weapon will allow him to have some sort of connection to Knull, which which will allow us to allude to Knull as the next big bad guy. Marvel can hint at him, and with all the stories being told about the symbiotes, even more could happen with Venom, who up to this point has just been the anti-Spider-Man.
The symbiote was originally it wasn't ever really supposed to be anything super crazy. I mean, when you look at the real world story, it was just Marvel looking for a reason to sell more toys. It was a contest held, and a fan submitted a design for a new Spider-Man costume that was black and red. Marvel liked it, bought it, changed it up a little bit, made the symbiote. As soon as it was released in the Amazing Spider-Man pages, the people hated it. But the Secret War story that they needed it for, it hadn't even come out yet, so they needed to keep the suit. And then as soon as they could, they got rid of it, and then everyone liked it after that. So they brought it back, gave it to some new dude named Eddie Brock. It was never meant to be this huge crazy thing after the run with Carnage and everything. So there's more symbiotes besides Venom and Carnage. It just got crazier and crazier, and Venom went from being this really plain and simple anti-Spider-Man, like the polar opposite, to an actual developed anti-hero with a proper backstory and incredible lore behind him.
With all these new connections, we have a whole bunch of storylines that can happen. I want to see the super soldier symbiotes on Earth. I want to see the Agents of the Cosmos. But all of that can only happen whenever the origins are introduced. This ain't a single Spider-Man universe thing. This is the entire MCU. So the origins need to be set, and Gorr the God Butcher in Thor Love and Thunder is just the start of that. And there you have it. What do you guys think? Do you think the symbiotes will be the next big phase for the MCU? Will Knull have an even bigger presence than just through Gorr the God Butcher? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this every day. Thanks guys, and we'll catch you next time.